Hi everybody, this is Shri and welcome back to my channel Vedic Living. Today what I want to talk to you about is the predictions for the month of April. We are almost at the end of the month of March and we'll be talking about everything that's happening in April 2023. There's a lot going on in this month, so bear with me, be patient. This is going to be a long video, okay? Now, before we go any further, I want to remind you to visit my website, Vedic Living, VEDIC-living.com, and make sure that you use my free chart calculator to see where your planets are. And that way you know how these predictions will affect you personally. And also make sure you sign up for my free newsletter, which is News from the Cosmos. I do send out a free newsletter every month, and the month April predictions will be going out very soon. So make sure you get in, and I want to make sure you get that in your inbox, okay? Now, April predictions, so much going on this month. So right off the bat, let's talk about the Sade Sati that US is going through. In US chart, moon is placed in the sign of Aquarius. With Saturn moving into Aquarius in January of this year, it started off the Sade Sati for United States. You know, traditionally in India, in Vedic astrology, the Sade Sati period is a 7.5-year period. It's the sign before where the moon is placed, the sign of the moon, and the sign after the moon. So that's 7.5 years. But I consider it to be the strongest when it is in the sign of the moon. So we can argue that US has been going through Sade Sati for 2.5 years. So that's 2020, January, when it started, which kind of makes sense, right? Because we've had the whole COVID situation, the pandemic and everything going on since then, but that was for the whole world. But I consider the fact that the Sade Sati is happening in the sign, where that moon is placed for US, and actually going over the moon, which is, you know, the biggest impact. This is going to be the most eventful couple of years for the United States. In what areas is the Sade Sati going to be effective? Whatever the moon stands for. In the US chart, moon is placed in the third house. The third house is the house of communications, technology, media, news agencies, and things that have to do with internet, telecommunications, everything that has to do with Mercury, travel. That's all the third house. So we have seen since the month of January, and in fact, even like late last year, because, you know, these aspects, even though the planet is moving into that sign at a certain point, you will see the effect starting a couple of months before that, because these are slow moving planets, okay? So the effect will start a few months before that. So you would have seen late last year and going into early this year, we've had a lot of issues with communications, with hacking, with travel. A lot of airlines have had problems with trying to make sure that people get to where they need to get to. Planes have been canceled. There's been a lot more of that than usual. And this is all because of that Sade Sati that's happening in the third house of travel and communications. Here's another thing that's going on. The news agencies, the issue with the news that's coming from the media being questioned by a lot of people. People are starting to open their eyes. They're starting to see the reality of what's behind that veil. So that's being questioned, and that's another area that's undergoing a lot of changes right now. Now, what does the moon rule in the United States chart? It rules Cancer, which is the 8th house. What is the 8th house? It's a financial house. It has to do with the banking systems. It has to do with stock markets and everything that has to do with money and finances, money that you borrow. That's the 8th house. You're seeing problems there too. In the last couple of months, you would have seen a lot of banking systems have had failures in their way of processing day-to-day matters. And they're all coming out into the open. See, this is what the Sade Sati does. Even when you have Sade Sati in your own life, in your personal chart, It's usually going to be challenging. But here's the thing. Out of these challenges come great growth, which, after a while, after your Sadhisati is over, you look back and think, I'm so glad that happened because I learned so much in this time frame. I've grown as an individual. I've evolved. And this is what is happening in the case of the country too. Through these challenges, through the flaws of the system being exposed, because that's what we are seeing now. The breakdown that's happening is exposing the flaws that were underlying, which nobody knew about in all these years, but all of that is coming out. And this is required. This is inspired change. This will bring about a huge change in all these areas: media, communications, internet, technology, security, cybersecurity, in fact, travel, banking. In all these areas, in the next couple of years, you're going to see huge overhauls in the system, which will be ultimately for the good. So hang in there when this is happening, observe what is going on, and tell yourself that, you know what, this is required. This has to happen. All of these flaws that were innate in the system had to come out at some point. The Sadhisati is only exposing those flaws, okay? Saturn is not your enemy. I always tell people, Saturn is not a bad planet. It's not your enemy. It is just kind of showing you the reality. It's showing you the truth. And that's required in this lifetime. So that's what is going on with US Sadhisati. And that's the very first thing I wanted to talk to you about. Why? Because this Sadhisati will have 3 hits. When Saturn goes over the moon forwards, when it goes backwards over it, and then in the end, once again, the final forward movement of Saturn over that moon. So the first hit was in March. It was actually, I think it was around the 2nd or 3rd week of March, that first hit. So you saw a lot of things happening in March in these areas that I talked about. But there'll be 2 more hits this year. It's going to be September, and there's going to be another one towards the end of the year. So what that means is the first hit usually starts the series of events. It's the most difficult one because it starts showing you what is missing here in these areas. The second hit is where things we start putting things in place to fix these issues. So we start moving on it. We start saying, you know what? I kind of know all these problems that are going on right now, so I'm going to start fixing this. And then the third and final hit is the closure, where we finally come out of this and we say, you know what, things look good now, right? So those are the 3 main hits. So this was an important one that I needed to talk to you about, but this is ongoing. Remember, this whole year, in fact, the next 2 years is going to be the Sadhisati for the US, the country of United States. The next big thing that's happening this month, in April, every month we have a full moon and a new moon. April full moon is on April 6th. I will be making another video, which is only for the full moon, but I'll touch on it a little bit in this video. The full moon on April 6th, sun is in Pisces and moon is in Virgo, okay? And what do we think about when we think about of Pisces and Virgo? We think about expansion. Think about humanitarian efforts, about growth. Sun is with Jupiter at this time. Jupiter rules Pisces, which shows that there is happiness, there is optimism about the future. People are thinking hopeful. They're feeling good about what's coming. That's good. New inventions in the area of health and healing, because that's Virgo. Virgo rules health and healing, medicine, a lot of new inventions. You know, whenever the full moon is in the sign of Virgo or contains the sign of Virgo in some aspects, I think about new kind of cures or medical health, holistic modalities coming around. So that's definitely going to happen. People are thinking about what better ways exist to fix this health issue, rather than going down the traditional route. So that's definitely in a trend right now in this month, especially with this full moon in Pisces and Virgo, it's going to happen. Now, another thing that's happening on April 6th, along with this full moon, is Mercury is conjunct Rahu. Mercury is communication, everything to do with travel, communication, things that have to do with talking to others, expressing yourself. And with Mercury being conjunct Rahu, this is extremes, because Rahu magnifies, it expands. It's extremes in communication. So this is not a great day to, have that conversation with your boss or with your spouse. You might want to wait a couple of days to have that important conversation, because when Mercury is with Rahu, sometimes things can go out of control. Things may be misunderstood, because Rahu can magnify things. It can make a small thing into a huge thing, like a mountain out of a molehill, that kind of an analogy. So remember that, this is not a great day to have those discussions. Wait a couple of days. Mercury is a fast moving planet, so a couple of days should do it. Okay. April 10th to April 15th, Jupiter will be in the last few degrees of Pisces. This is what we call gandhanta. Gandhanta in Vedic astrology means the last few degrees of a water sign or the first few degrees of a fire sign. So in that period, the planet is considered gandhanta. Literally, the meaning of gandhanta is drowning. It means out of control. When you think about drowning, the body, the person is feeling like he cannot control his movement. He's not able to breathe. He feels like he's going under the water. So symbolically, what this means is, in this time frame, things can be a little out of control. Okay. You may feel like destiny or fate is taking over. You may feel like things are a little out of control. This is from April 10th till the 15th. So another thing is, because it's in the last few degrees of a water sign, this is going to also show really extreme weather patterns. So tornadoes, severe weather, oceans and seas, tsunamis, all of that, floods can happen in this time frame. So something to watch out for. Okay. Now, April 20th is the solar eclipse this year. Sorry, this month, not this year. So remember, every 6 months we have an eclipse. And with the solar eclipse, and once again, I'll make another video for just the solar eclipse, because we have a lot to talk about it. Okay. Now, the April 20th solar eclipse, it's a Rahu solar eclipse, because Rahu is with the sun at this time. So this is going to be an extreme 6 months that are going to come up. I always tell you, the solar eclipse doesn't, in fact, create any events on that specific day. The energies of an eclipse last for 6 months until the next eclipse. So this being a Rahu eclipse, Rahu being with the sun rules government leaders, world leadership. There can be change in world leadership over the next 6 months. There can be corruption at those levels that will be exposed, that will come out, because Rahu is about bringing things out into the open. It's happening in the sign of Aries. It's about innovation. It's about new beginnings, things starting new inventions, new discoveries, all of that. So this is going to be a very monumental solar eclipse. In my video about the solar eclipse, which will be coming up very soon, I will be talking about specifically what this eclipse means for various signs and what you can kind of look out for. Okay. April 21st, Jupiter is going to move into the sign of Aries. Jupiter is in a sign for almost a year every time it transits, right? So it's been in Pisces since last year. April 21st of 2023, Jupiter's going to move into Aries. And I've been telling a lot of my clients this because, when Jupiter moves into a certain sign, it brings a new set of events for the next year, even in your personal life. So this is an important kind of transition that's happening. With Jupiter moving into Aries, many planets, there'll be a stellium. A stellium in Vedic astrology is more than 2 to 3 planets in a sign. Many planets will be in Aries at this time. So when this transition of Jupiter happens into Aries, Jupiter is with Rahu and Uranus at that time in Aries. Plus a sudden unexpected events. So, and imagine things with space and technology, travel, airplanes, all of this is ruled by Uranus, machinery. So with Jupiter, Rahu, and Uranus being in Aries, there can be sudden events in these areas, sudden weather patterns, things to do with the weather. Just like we talked about Jupiter being gandhanta, there can be extreme weather patterns. Now, in June, Jupiter will come up to Rahu, and there will be a conjunction there when it comes to Rahu. But I have to also remind you, every single time this has happened in the past, in 2011, in 1999 to 2000, 1929 to 1930, every time this has happened, there has also been a rebound after that. So things have gotten better. So even though you will see this happening, things have gotten better after. Okay, so that's definitely also the case. I think that's going to be the case this year too. Not to mention with the US going through Sari Sati, which is also affecting the financial markets, this is definitely a double impact in this area. Okay. Now, another thing I also want you to remember is that everything that's happening with this Jupiter kind of transit, Jupiter is a benefic ultimately in the sky. So even though there are sudden events that are difficult because of its conjunction with Rahu and Uranus, there will be, in the big picture, there will be good change that comes out of this. So let's watch that, because I truly believe there's going to be something good that comes out of all these changes. Now, April 21st to May 5th, Mercury is retrograde. So remember that, because remember, whenever Mercury goes retrograde, it is not a great time to start new things or to sign a contract. Mercury retrograde is a time to review and reassess everything that has gone on in the past and to plan what you're going to do in the future, not to do it, not to sign any documents. So, and also when I say this, you know, there may be something where it's urgent that you have to do something, but it'll also depend a lot on your personal chart. You know, we can't say and nobody in the entire world should sign a contract or a document. If your chart has some positive aspects at the time, it will definitely show, you know, the promise of overcoming the Mercury retrograde kind of issues. So remember, this is very specific to each chart as well. So Mercury is going to, before it goes retrograde, it's going to station at 20 degrees of Aries. This is a very important point because there are two fixed stars at this exact point. Menkar, which rules disgrace and humiliation, fall from grace, and Almach, which rules honor and fame. So it's like two opposite things. So these two fixed stars kind of have two opposite meanings. I believe there's going to be somebody who, like a celebrity or a politician or somebody who is very well known, who could have some kind of disgrace in this month, especially because Mercury is stationed at that point at 20 degrees. There can be some kind of misunderstanding with communication, with technology, something to do with that, which can cause a fall from grace for the celebrity or multiple people maybe, but definitely there's something that's going to happen on those lines. Now, it also brings about shocking revelations. Mercury is about news and media, so there can be shocking revelations about famous people that we didn't know about in the past. Mercury rules travel and communications. So, you know, when you travel, make sure that your chart has really good positive aspects going on during this time frame, because it is retrograde. Mercury is retrograde. It will bring about kind of, and it'll expose the flaws in the way we are doing things today. And that will bring about long-term change, especially when Mercury is retrograde. Okay. Mars is still in Gemini till May 12th. It's going to be in Gemini. Now, March 12th is when Mars went into Gemini. So from March 12th till May 12th. There is going to be a period of time in the month of April where there is a Parivartana Yoga. What that means is mutual exchange. When planets are in each other's signs of rulership, it's a Parivartana Yoga. So Mars being in Gemini and Mercury being in Mars sign, which is Aries. So when both these planets are in each other's signs, this is a Parivartana Yoga. This is very, very strong. Parivartana Yoga is almost like they are exchanging signs. So Mars in Aries and Mercury in Gemini. So this is a time when both these areas, so Mars is about anger, frustration, things happening very quickly, sudden events. And Mercury is communications and technology and travel. So because of the Parivartana Yoga, also that tie-up is happening where both these planets are in each other's signs of rulership. So again, remember that when you plan, things that you need to do during the Mercury retrograde, take the time to get some R&R, review and reassess your plans about what you want to do. And once Mercury goes direct, you can start taking action on that. And another thing also is when Mercury is retrograde, there can be confusion or misinterpretation in what you're saying. So be very clear in your communication, in what you're writing and what you're speaking, because people can misunderstand what you're saying. Okay. So those are the predictions for the month of April. I will make detailed videos for the solar eclipse, which is a big deal, and for the full moon. And once that comes out, you'll get some more information about all of these transits. So once again, thank you for coming to my channel, and I'll see you next time.